Just the Van. I'm grossly underwhelmed. To borrow a phrase from the Cleveland Dog Pound, woof. I'm not that excited by this. They did this sort of far-reaching search, and Alex Van Pelt was the guy. He's fine. He's fine, but he's basically a Jag offensive coordinator. I mean, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. But I was hoping they would get somebody who could be dynamic. I was hoping that maybe they'd follow. Tampa's going to bring Liam Cohen back into the NFL, reportedly. The Saints are waiting on Clint Kubiak, who works for Kyle Shanahan. And the Kubiak family has been integrally involved in the Shanahan offense for years, going back to Clint Kubiak's dad, Gary. So I thought they were going to go for somebody with more growth potential, not an offensive coordinator in his 50s who wasn't the primary play caller, has been an offensive coordinator in multiple places. And really, when you look at Cleveland's offense, did you hear anybody the last 4 years he was there say, you know what offense we really want to take a page out of? The Cleveland Browns offense. You know what offense is really dynamic? The Cleveland Browns offense. We want to do that. You know what offense is going to win in the NFL? The Cleveland Browns offense. They were very good at running the football. They had an excellent offensive line. There were some pluses there, don't get me wrong, but I'm a little concerned that the identity of the Mayo Patriots is going to be defense and running game. And I think we know enough to know you're not going to win a championship if that's your identity.
What do you think happened here, Chris? How do you think they ended up with him?
I think that maybe some other candidates they were interested in, and the reporting's been out there on this, that, I know Bedard said on your show, were maybe nonplussed, in terms of what they saw from the Patriots, in terms of what the weapons are and what they have to work with. I think that was sort of problematic for them. But again, I just go back, they interviewed 12 candidates, and I guess that includes Van Pelt, depending on how you do the numbers. But at any point, did you hear anybody in the New England media clamoring to say, hey, you know who got let go in Cleveland and the Patriots should be interviewing? Alex Van Pelt. Did you hear anybody? And I'm not picking on people. I'm just naming people I really trust as Patriots reporters.
Chris.
Phil Perry, Tom Curran, Mike Reese. Were any of them like, hey, they should be talking to Alex Van Pelt?
Never in the history of my life have I heard anyone on any team.
No, because we've all been horned up for getting these guys from the McVay,
young, talented guys, yes,
or
which
Shanahan.
he does not qualify as.
But some of these. So here's the thing, though, Chris. If we would be killing if they got Ken Dorsey, who went to Cleveland, who helped turn Josh Allen into Carson Wentz over the last year or so at times. Arthur Smith, who goes to Pittsburgh. Some of these guys, I get it. They're not from the systems that we wanted them to come from, but I think if we got any of these other guys that were retreads, we'd be killing them too. I'm glad he has experience with a quarterback. That's the only positive I'm putting on this. That's why I don't think it's that bad.
What quarterback? I mean, Cleveland literally got rid of him because they felt like he wasn't getting enough out of Deshaun Watson. Kudos to him, by the way, for getting 5 different quarterbacks ready. I mean, that was impressive what he did last year. I mean, I kind of just think, old Joe Flacco was just kind of on one when he got him. I don't know how much credit I give to the offensive coordinator. And then he coached Aaron Rodgers, which I think I could be quarterbacks coach for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you look at Nathaniel Hackett. He was a great quarterbacks coach for Aaron Rodgers. So I'm not trying to rip, he's fine. He's a competent offensive coordinator. I just don't think he moves the needle or he's dynamic. And, I don't mean to body shame anybody, but he's definitely not a tight pants offensive mind. He's not wearing any tight pants. I think we know that.
So he looks a little like Joe Hags.
So back to, again, what you think happened.
Some people have said Jim Louth.
Oh, yeah. Do you think that the Pats weren't willing to pay for it? Or do you think that a guy like Liam Cohen, who you mentioned, or the Kubiak kid, didn't want to come here because of, for a variety of reasons? What do you think it was more? The Pats weren't willing to wait for it or pay for it, or those kind of guys didn't want to come here?
Maybe there was an element, and I don't know the answer, to be totally honest with you, so I'll just speculate. There might have been an element here of, I'll come take your job, but, I need kind of some hazard pay built in, which is a little bit more because I'm taking your job, and there's no guarantee I'm going to have the personnel that I need to be successful. But it just kind of blows me away, though, when I look at how long the search took and how close they were to the Super Bowl. I would have just waited and gone after Clint Kubiak. And again, I know, the Saints are interested in him, but the same thing, you could make a case. And I wonder if they moved so quickly on Van Pelt because Tampa had expressed some interest, and the Raiders named Cliff Kingsbury their offensive coordinator, like right after the Van Pelt news came, and he had interviewed for that job. So it seems like people had some interest, which is good. But I just don't think it's great when 2 of your 3 finalists for the coordinator gig, it was Nick Caley, who I was a fan of. I would have liked to have seen Nick come back. Luke Getsy and Alex Van Pelt. 2 of the 3 are guys that got fired by somebody else. But I mean, that to me is not. It's not like they got fired as head coaches. Like, Arthur Smith, I would have, I disagree with Murray. I would have been happy with Arthur Smith.
Me too.
If anybody knows how I feel about Ryan Tannehill, it's Jim Murray. And that guy made Ryan Tannehill look good. Like, I would have been happy with him. A guy who's fired as a head coach and is sort of coming back to it. I probably, as much as I wanted to change systems, I would have been happier with Josh McDaniels if we're going the retread offensive coordinator route. I just have some concerns, and it's not just about Van Pelt. I don't mean to pick on him, but just overall the way this staff is being put together, I have some concerns.
Explain.
Well, my concern is that, Gerard's a really smart guy, right? But his entire coaching experience is in New England, and he's only been coaching for 5 years. And so one of the first questions they ask you in these head coaching interviews is, tell me about your staff. How would you put a staff together? Can you put a staff together? He's never had to do that. And I'm concerned that because he has only experience really here, and we know how Bill operated, the whole one voice thing, and he only has 5 years of coaching experience, that he just doesn't have the normal connections that a lot of these coaches would have to be able to put together a staff. And so these interviews, it's almost kind of like, blind dates, like matchmaking. And also because he doesn't have that experience, maybe he's leaning a little bit more on some of the personnel people, like Elliot Wolf, who was involved in these discussions about offensive coordinator. And so that's my concern, is that his lack of experience as a coach and potentially lack of networking connections in the NFL is dictating the search, coloring the search. And that's why you're getting what you're getting. I love DeMarcus Covington. I think that's the best of the picks, but he was already here. But again, I don't know, were people clamoring to hire Jeremy Springer as the special teams coach? Or Van Pelt, I know, had some interest. But again, was anybody here saying, who they should really talk to? Alex Van Pelt. And you have this long search. I jokingly said in the show email, it was like this American Idol-like search for an offensive coordinator. And, at the end, you ended up with like Clay Aiken instead of Carrie Underwood. It's just disappointing.
So I got to tell you, I didn't get that reference. What does that mean?
Of course you didn't.
Did he finish second to her?
Clay Aiken was decent, but, he's kind of not a
to be
great
fair,
artist.
It's a 20-year-old reference.
You're
It is an
saying
old
well, usually I'm closer to that, meaning I would have a better chance. You'd rather have Carrie Underwood than Clay Aiken? I don't know who Clay Aiken is.
Yeah, that's my point. But you know who Carrie Underwood is, right?
Yeah. Because she made
exactly. Yeah.
Got it.
That's my point.
Got it.
Chris,
Like you could have had the next big thing. You're hoping you have the next big thing like Mike McDaniel or Ben Johnson.
Got it.
And instead you just got
Clay
an
Aiken.
artist.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, with regard to Mayo and the absence of a network, as you put it, because I've had Patriots fans that I know have complained to me about this. Shouldn't the Crafts have been able to help with that?
I think they are trying to help with it. But, then you get into sort of the too many cooks thing. People, it's his staff. He really has to shape it, come up with his philosophy, all that. Like, if you look at Raheem Morris in Atlanta, I guarantee Raheem went into those interviews saying, if you give me this job, Zach Robinson's my offensive coordinator. He walked into it knowing, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is the system I'm going to run. This is what we're going to do. I just think it's like more open-ended for Gerard, and you're going through this process. I think he had an idea. It's pretty clear from the people he interviewed that he knew he wanted to go in a different direction offensively. I think that's good. He was interested in the McVay-Shanahan people, but he didn't have like a guy. Well, this is my guy.
And this is also, excuse me, you just said Raheem Morris. I think why my D'Amico Ryans had the same thing in Houston, right? Like he had a guy. Like that was it. And it was of a piece.
Slowick,
It was a unified vision. It was a cohesive plan. They were together. They were attached at the hip. And it's,
you hire me and I'm bringing in my team.
I know who I want. I know what I want to do. And I know who's doing it. And I know him. I'm familiar with him. He's qualified. And, that's not what happened here. That's just, it's from the start. It's my problem's been the process.
Yeah. Potluck dinner.